Hi guys, welcome to the latest Smash the Math video lesson. Today we're going to be looking at translating an object using vectors. So remember, with all the videos, make sure you follow the tips to get the most out of it. So make sure you watch the video first without pausing, watch it a second time and do the work with me, and then you can pause it if you need to. Watch the video one more time all the way through and then attempt the questions at the end before watching the answers. That's really important, remember. And then check your answers. If you've got them right, that's great. If you haven't, go back through the video and don't leave until you've managed to get all the questions correctly done. Okay, right, for today's lesson you're going to need to print off some graph paper. So I've given you a link below in the comments to download the paper. So if you can download that before you watch the video and print it off, that's great, because that'll help you to be able to do the questions. Right, okay, so a couple of things we're going to do today. First, we're going to look at what the words translation and vector mean. Then I'm going to show you how to translate an object using those vectors. And remember, don't forget the challenge, because you want to be able to do the challenge at the end. Otherwise there's no point in watching this if you're not going to put your learning into practice. Okay, so let's have a look first then at what these two words actually means. So translate with regard to maths. So translate, what I can't write, basically means to move an object. Okay, so it's about moving an object. So if I've got a triangle at one position, normally on a graph, I'm going to move it to another position. That means I've translated it. I've moved it from one place to another. That's all it means, okay? To translate is to move. And the word vector describes how that shape or object has been moved. Okay, so it gives you the instructions on where to move it to or how it's been moved. All right, and vectors are used, for example, by pilots to get from one position to another. So it's a set of instructions, if you like, on how to get from one place to the next. Okay, so I'm going to show you some examples. And then, as always, you've got some at the end to practice. So we've got some graph paper here, or graph should I say, and don't forget the axes. So we've got the x-axis here, that's the one that always runs along horizontally, and the y-axis, which is the vertical one. Okay, so x and y. Now a vector normally has some brackets around it. Now it could be curved brackets like that, or square brackets like that. It doesn't matter, it means the same thing. Okay, so round brackets, square brackets. Alright, so I'm going to put a point on this graph here and I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay, so we are going to move this point here to somewhere else on the graph using a vector. So I'm going to draw a vector, so let's do this. Okay, so that's what a vector looks like. The top number tells us how to move it in the x-axis. Okay, and the bottom number tells us how to move it in the y-axis. Right, it's always the x-axis first, so it's a good tip to write those next to your vector before you do anything with it. X always comes first, y is always second. Okay. Now this top number is telling us how much to move it on the graph, and because this number is positive, it means we're going to move our point to the right, and I'll explain that. If you look at this axis here, the x-axis, well, this is positive 4, right? We don't bother writing the positive, but that means add 4 or move 4. Okay, and if I am adding, so you can see there 3 plus 1 is 4, 4 plus 1 is 5, 5 plus 1 is 6, I'm adding, I'm actually moving towards the right hand side of the graph. Okay, and the bottom number tells us how to move it in the y. Because this is positive, we're going to move up. And again, that makes sense, right? Because every time I add 1 on the graph, I'm going up. Okay, right, so let's just get rid of that and then I can show you how to do it. Okay, so good tip is always then to write x and y next to your vector and then work out whether you've got to go right or left or up or down. I'll explain the left and down bit in a second. So we're going to move this now, so we've got to move it 4 on the x-axis, so we're going to count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, so at the moment I'm just about there, and then 2 up on the y-axis, so I'm going to go 1, 2, so I'm now there. So I've moved 4 on the x-axis to the right and 2 up, so I've translated this point from here to here using this vector. Okay, now remember the vector could be written in the square brackets like that, it doesn't really matter. Okay, So that's one example. Let me show you another one. So let's just get rid of this. And I'm just going to get rid of that on my graph. Start again. Okay, right. So let's this time put a point here. Okay, so let's write down a vector where we're going to move it. So -5 and -3. Okay, so now we've got minus numbers in our vector. So remember, label it. That's x always first and then y. So minus means on the x-axis to go left. And again, that makes sense because as I take one away, or -1 each time, I'm going this way. Okay? And when it's minus in the y, it means to go down. And again, that's the same because every time I subtract or -1, I'm going down on the graph. Okay? So, get rid of that. So we're going to translate this point here using that vector. So we're going to go 5 to the left. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm now there. And then 3 down. 1, 2, 3. So I've translated that point from there to there. So we've gone from there to there using this vector. Okay, that's as tricky as it gets really. If you can get your head around that, then you'll be fine. Okay, so I'm going to show you some other examples though, because normally what we get asked to do is to move an object or a shape on a graph. So here's a square. So I'm going to write myself down a vector. I'm going to use square brackets this time, not that it doesn't matter. So we're going to go 9 and let's go -4. Okay, so label up my vector, x always first. So we're going 9 and it's positive, so we're going to go to the right because remember we add in each time. And the y-axis we're going to -4, so we're going to go down because remember every time we take one off we're going down. Now the big tip here, it's the same thing as what I showed you just now. I'm going to pick a corner and I'm going to move that corner, and it's important to label that corner because you've got to redraw the shape in a minute. So we're going to go 9 across, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so we're here, and 4 down, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my point there. That corner now is there, and now you would normally do it with a ruler. I haven't got one, and then we draw our shape back in. Okay, so I've translated that square from there to there using that vector. Okay, let's have another look at another example. So this time we've got a triangle. Let's draw a vector where we're going to move it. So we're going to do -8 and let's go 1. Okay, so x first, y second. It's -8, so I'm going to be going left. And it's +1 on the y, so I'm going to go up. So pick a corner, remember it doesn't matter which one, so I'm going to take this one here, this top one here. So I'm going to move -8 or 8 to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1 up. So I'm actually going to end up there. Okay, and that's the top of my triangle. Now what I'm going to do is I've got to work out to draw this triangle. So in the middle here I've got 3 squares. So I'm going to go down 3. 1, 2, 3. So that point there is that point there. And then if you imagine I've got 2 squares this side and 2 squares this side. So I'm going to go 2 squares to this side and 2 squares to this side. So all I've done is worked out where my corners are. And then with a ruler you would join them up. Okay. And I'm really bad at drawing on my tablet, but there you go. So we've translated from this shape to this shape using this vector. Okay, so it's simple as that. So I've got some of those for you to practice in a minute. Just one more example. So what you might get given is a question where it gives you the translation. So you've seen that it's translated. Now we know this is translated because the shape is the same way round. Okay, if it had been rotated, for example, it might be this way round, because you imagine the rotation. All right, okay. If it had been mirrored, it would be opposite. Okay, so it would be kind of here if it was mirrored in this mirror line here. Okay, so, but because it's the same way round and it's not opposite, it's moved. Okay, it's a translation. We've moved it. Okay, So what we've got to do is to write down the vector that shows how it's gone from 1 to 2. Okay, so this time, again, pick a corner and then pick the same corner on the next shape. And we've got to work out how to get from there to there. So let's draw out our brackets for our vector. So we're going to start with the x-axis first. So we're going right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to get there. And I've gone right, haven't I? So I've gone this way. So that's positive. I'm adding on each time. And then we've got to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going up. So that again, that's positive because I'm adding 1 each time. So 6. So there's our vector. So to get from this triangle from this position on the graph to this position on the graph, I would have to use this vector. In other words, this vector describes this translation, how this has been translated from here to here. Okay, one more example of that. Okay, so we've gone from 1 to 2. So again, we'll pick a corner. So I'm going to pick this one and I'm going to highlight the same corner here and draw my brackets. And remember, you can label it if you want to. X always first. So we're going to go across and this time we are going left. Okay, so we're taking off. So it's going to be minus. And let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm there. So minus 8 on the x-axis, and now I'm going down on the y-axis. So that would be minus 2. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Minus 4. Okay. So to describe this translation, this movement from 1 to 2, this is the vector we would use. So this describes that translation or that movement from there to there. Okay. Right. Now, time to pause the video in a sec because you've got some questions coming up. Remember, you need to print off the graph paper, ideally, which is in the comments. You can download that PDF and then you can print it off. Remember, do the questions, but don't watch the answers until you've completed them all. You can go back and watch my demonstrations again if you need to, but remember, don't go past the questions until you've completed them. Right, here comes your first set of questions. Okay, so these questions are about moving the shape from one position, translating it to another using these vectors. Good luck, take your time, and I'll see you in a sec. Okay, right, that's your first set of questions. Here's your next set of questions. So these ones are about describing the translation. So from A to B, A to B, B to A, and B to A, and you've got to write down the vector. Okay, so have a go at those. Good luck. Right, okay, I'm going to put the answers up for you now. Okay, so make sure you've done all the questions. Hopefully you've done all those. And I'm going to put up the first set of answers for the first set of questions that I gave her, and you can mark them. So here come the answers. Hopefully you get them right. Okay, so here are your answers here. The red shapes are where you should have moved them to. Okay, so make sure you've got them right. You can pause the video, obviously. Okay, and here is your second set of questions, or answers, should I say. Good luck, hope you've got these right too. And here are the vectors down here that you should have written down. Okay, right, that's it. Okay, so hopefully you've learnt something today. Remember, there's loads more videos to watch and there's loads more coming on the channel. Make sure you subscribe to this channel down in the corner so you can come back. Hope you've really enjoyed today's lesson. Hope you've learnt something. Remember, we've looked at what the word translation means. That means to move an object. And we've looked at what the word vector means. And vector is basically the instructions on how to move. And then we looked at how to translate objects using those vectors. Thanks very much for watching and see you again soon. See ya.